So when you become a Freemason and you join a local lodge in your community, you will be getting 3 degrees: the Entered Apprentice degree, the Fellowcraft degree, and the Master Mason degree.
They say if you really knew what you were, you'd never doubt again. Not your choices, not your power, not even your place in this strange spinning world. And yet here we are, waking up most mornings wondering if we're getting closer to something real, or just better at surviving the illusion. But here's the truth most people will never tell you. You're not lost. You're right on the edge of remembering something ancient, something that has been whispered through the lips of mystics, hidden in sacred architecture and buried in coded texts for centuries. Part 1. The Hidden Blueprint. This isn't just spiritual fluff or self-help optimism. This is about control, not of others, not even of the world, but of your inner reality. And once you learn to command that, the rest follows. The outer world begins to respond to your frequency, like a lock clicking open to a key it's been waiting for. That key is what some have called 33rd degree knowledge. Let's begin there. Now, don't get distracted by the title. 33rd degree doesn't belong to any one tradition, though it's been tied to Freemasonry, Hermetic orders, and esoteric schools from ancient Egypt to the Renaissance. But what it really points to is a state of awareness, a level of consciousness where you stop reacting and start directing, where you stop being pushed by life and begin shaping it. The number 33 has long held symbolic weight. In numerology, it's known as the master teacher, the vibration of spiritual maturity and enlightened action. In Christian mysticism, Jesus was said to have been crucified at 33. In Kabbalah, there are 32 paths of wisdom, plus one hidden, central path that completes them all. In other words, 33 is not a number, it's a doorway. And what lies beyond that doorway is not a set of facts, but a shift in how you perceive reality. Let me explain. Most people live from the outside in. They look at the world, absorb its noise, and respond. If someone is rude, they feel small. If money is tight, they panic. If love is distant, they doubt their worth. In that state, the world becomes their master, and their mind becomes a mirror for its chaos. But the 33rd degree? It teaches you to flip it, to live from the inside out, to stop reacting and start vibrating, to start sending a frequency so strong the external world has no choice but to bend around you. Like a magnet rearranging iron filings, your inner alignment begins to shape outer form. You don't control reality by forcing it, you control it by resonance. This is what ancient mystics have always known. In the Emerald Tablet, attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, it is said, "As above, so below, as within, so without." The surface world is nothing but a reflection of the inner one. So when your thoughts are fractured, your life becomes chaotic. But when your consciousness becomes whole, when you're no longer chasing but being, everything starts to respond. You've seen it, even if you didn't notice. The person who seems to have effortless timing. The one who walks into a room and shifts its energy without saying a word. The artist who touches people not just with beauty but with presence. They're not lucky, they're aligned. They're living from the 33rd frequency, whether they know it or not. And here's the thing, they didn't have to earn it. Neither do you. This knowledge isn't something you achieve, it's something you remember, because deep down you've always felt it, haven't you? The sense that something else is going on beneath the surface of ordinary life, that your thoughts don't just echo inside your head, but ripple out like waves, that your emotions carry weight, that your attention, your stillness, your focus, they matter, and they do. Every ancient system, be it Taoist alchemy, Vedic philosophy, or Sufi mysticism, teaches some version of this truth. Your perception creates your world, not figuratively, literally. In Taoist thought, there is a concept called Wu Wei, effortless action. It's the art of aligning yourself so deeply with the flow of life that you no longer resist it. You become like water, soft but unstoppable. You stop trying to force outcomes and instead move with such clarity and presence that reality adjusts to meet you. That's the first lesson of 33rd degree knowledge. Stop pushing, start attuning. Now, let's get practical. The mind will fight this at first. It's been trained to survive, not to trust. It's used to analysing, calculating, defending, But what if you let go of control, not to become passive, but to become powerful in a different way? What if the greatest control you could ever have is the ability to shift your internal state no matter what's happening outside you? You'll know you've stepped into the 33rd frequency, not when your life becomes perfect, but when your reaction to life stops being predictable. When someone insults you and instead of shrinking, you feel a strange peace. When plans fall apart and something inside you stays still. When the old story tries to take over and you say, quietly but clearly, not anymore. In that moment, you're not bound by cause and effect. You're not the victim of your programming. You're the architect of your vibration. And here's where it gets beautiful. The more you live like this, not performing, not pretending, but truly aligned, the more reality begins to echo it back. The people you once chased now seek you. The chaos that once drained you no longer touches you. Life starts to flow, not because it got easier, but because you did. You softened your grip. You raised your frequency. You stopped fighting the mirror and began adjusting the face. This is where the real shift begins. You're not meant to wait for life to give you permission. You're meant to tune in and start transmitting. You're not here to survive the world. You're here to shape it. And once you understand that, once you feel it in your bones, the illusion of limitation begins to crack. The walls become mirrors. The locks become doors. And what you once thought was fate, it becomes a choice. Part 2. The Silent Builders. Shaping reality from within. You've felt it, haven't you? The strange pull toward ancient symbols, old temples, hidden texts. Not because of nostalgia or superstition, but because something deep inside you recognizes them. These were not built for decoration. They were built with intention, with knowledge, with frequency. The great pyramids, the sacred geometry in cathedrals, the stone alignments that mark solstices, they are not just architecture. They are memory. They are maps. And the ones who built them knew a secret. True creation begins in silence. They were called many names across history, the silent builders, the hidden masters, the keepers of the flame. They weren't kings or warriors. They weren't loud. They didn't seek attention. They were aligned. And through their alignment, they changed the world, not by force, but by vibration. They understood something most people still don't, that the outer world is plastic, bendable, reprogrammable. That thought is structure, that consciousness is blueprint, and that to build anything in stone you must first hold it steady in spirit. Many of them left no names. They were content being shadows behind the light, but you can see their fingerprints everywhere, in the symmetry of ancient temples, in the silence of hidden monasteries, in the mathematical harmony of sacred spaces where sound echoes just so. These weren't accidents. They were evidence. Look at the builders of the Gothic cathedrals. Most of them weren't formally educated, yet they constructed with divine ratios, aligned windows to celestial events, and etched hidden codes into the stone. Why? Because they weren't building for the eye. They were building for the soul. They understood that structure affects spirit, and spirit in turn affects structure. They were working with the 33rd frequency, long before we gave it that name. Let's go even further back. In ancient Egypt, temples were not simply religious sites. They were tuning chambers. The walls of Karnak and Luxor were built with resonant limestone, designed to amplify human intention. When priests spoke sacred words within their sanctuaries, the stone absorbed the frequency and carried it across chambers. That's not symbolism, that's vibrational engineering. But here's the real secret. You are the temple now. The ancients knew this. In Hermetic philosophy, the phrase "man is the microcosm of the macrocosm" appears again and again, meaning your inner world mirrors the cosmos. You're not simply in reality, you are reality, experiencing itself through a focused point of awareness. And the more refined that awareness becomes, the more precise your creative power. The silent builders didn't work from ego. They didn't act from fear. They didn't need credit or validation. Their power came from stillness. From being so anchored in inner clarity that external form became a consequence, not a goal. And this is the key to controlling reality. Not domination, not manipulation, but alignment. Quiet, stable, unshakable alignment. Now pause and ask yourself, what are you building right now? Because whether you know it or not, you're building something every moment. With your thoughts, with your emotions, with the beliefs you rehearse in silence? Are they aligned with truth, or are they shaped by inherited fear, past pain, or other people's projections? Most of us. Try to build while fragmented, pushing ourselves to manifest something new while still carrying the frequency of our old self. But the silent builders would tell you this: you cannot raise a temple with cracked stones. You must purify first, not morally but energetically. You must come back to your center, to the quiet place beneath all your thoughts, and begin again. This is where the teachings of the mystics echo through time. Ramana Maharshi sat in complete stillness for years, saying little, yet people travelled across continents just to sit in his presence. Why? Because he had become a tuning fork for reality. His clarity created a field, and people stepped into it. His presence, not his words, did the work. Lao Tzu, the ancient Chinese sage, said, "To the mind that is still, the whole universe surrenders." He wasn't speaking in riddles, he was giving you the formula. Stillness is not passivity, it is precision. It is the fertile ground in which real power takes root. The silent builders all understood this. So how do you become one? You start by shifting where you build from, not from desperation, not from performance, not from fear of missing out, but from truth. And the first truth is this: your reality will not change until your vibration does. Not momentarily, not occasionally, but fundamentally. Begin to treat your thoughts like bricks. Don't throw them wildly. Place them with care. When fear arises, don't suppress it, but don't cement it either. Let it pass like a cloud. Keep the foundation clear. Hold the vision not in your head, but in your heart until your body believes it too. This is sacred construction. The silent builders weren't born with this ability. They trained it, through repetition, through ritual, through conscious rest and intentional movement. They learned that reality doesn't bend to willpower alone. It bends to inner coherence. That's what the 33rd degree teaches, not magic tricks, not shortcuts, but the lost art of internal mastery. And mastery, by nature, is quiet. There's an old Middle Eastern parable about a stonecutter who longed to be powerful. He wished to be the sun, and he became it. Then he wished to be the clouds that blocked the sun, and he became them. Then the wind, then the mountains. Eventually he wished to be the one who shaped the mountain, the stonecutter, and so he became himself again. But this time he remembered. His power was never out there. It was always in his hands. That's what the builders knew, and it's what you're starting to remember. You don't need to control the world. You only need to control your frequency. That is enough to shape mountains. Part 3. The silent construction. How reality begins to shape from within. Before a temple is built, there is silence. A pause in the land. A stillness in the breath of the builder. This is where creation begins, not in stone or blueprint, but in the inner space. And if you've come this far in understanding 33rd degree knowledge, you may already feel it. Reality is not changed by effort alone, but by vibration, clarity, and quiet command. There is something sacred in the act of not reacting, of not rushing, of not grasping. This is the hidden gate. To control reality is not to dominate it, but to tune yourself so precisely that the world starts to echo your tone. In ancient schools of mystery, this was taught not through lectures, but through discipline of silence. Initiates would spend long hours just watching their own minds, sweeping their inner temple clean. The outer world, they were told, cannot hold what the inner world cannot contain. This is the law of silent construction. All that appears in form was first born in formlessness. So we learn here, not with noise, but with stillness, not with a to-do list, but with a deep clearing. Ask yourself, what have I allowed to clutter my inner world? What stories keep playing without pause? What assumptions do I carry like weights? The silent builder knows that no structure can rise if the foundation is cracked by doubt, shame, or inherited limitation. To shape reality, you must clear the space where that reality is first conceived, your consciousness. This is not abstract. You'll feel it the moment you stop chasing and start watching. For example, next time you feel a strong emotional pull, fear, anger, lack, pause, breathe, don't act, just witness it. This moment of non-reaction is the equivalent of chiseling away what is not needed. You're removing what is false so that what is real can emerge. This inner craftsmanship is echoed in spiritual traditions across time. The Sufis speak of Sama, a listening so deep it becomes a doorway to God. The Taoists remind us that the empty space within the clay cup is what makes it useful. The Kabbalists say the world was created through Tzimtzum, a divine contraction, an act of withholding, that made space for light to take form. These are all ways of describing the same sacred truth. What you do not fill with noise becomes sacred ground for building. And what then are you building? You're building a temple of alignment, a state of being where your inner world and your outer world start to mirror each other, where thought, feeling, and energy flow as one stream. At this level, action becomes unnecessary until it's obvious. You no longer strive, you align. You no longer push, you draw. This is the power of silent construction. It is the deep, inner knowing that precedes all change. Mystics like Teresa of Avila spoke of the interior castle, a place within each person that holds chambers of light and hidden rooms of divine presence. She did not build that castle by shouting her will into the void. She built it by sitting still, praying without words, and listening to what wanted to unfold. This is your task too, not to impose a structure, but to allow the right one to rise through still presence. In modern terms, you can think of this as vibrational coherence. When your inner vibration is cluttered by fear, guilt, indecision, your external life reflects that chaos. But when your inner field is harmonized, the world bends toward your clarity. People feel it without knowing why. Opportunities emerge without being chased. Reality starts to become sculptable because you are no longer chaotic within. Here's where the practice becomes real. Choose a time each day where you build nothing, chase nothing, desire nothing. Just sit, breathe. Let the silence deepen. This isn't passive, it's precision. In that space, become aware of what is lingering. Is there resentment? A story of unworthiness? A thought that keeps repeating? These are your building materials. These are the blocks you polish. The more clarity you bring to this invisible temple, the more unshakable your external life becomes. And yes, this takes courage, because in silence there's nowhere to hide. No excuses, no distractions. You will meet yourself as you are. But that's the gift, because only when you meet yourself fully can you begin to reshape your field, your energy, your life. You become a conscious architect rather than an unconscious reactor. You become the kind of presence that alters rooms, attracts truth, and dissolves illusion. In this stage of 33rd degree knowledge, you are no longer asking life to change. You're changing the lens through which you see it. And in doing so, reality begins to answer differently. You begin to walk in the world as a silent builder, a vibrational master, a temple that moves. And when people ask, how are things always aligning for you? Why do you seem so calm in the storm? You won't explain. You'll just smile, because now you understand. The true work was never out there. It was always in here. To better illustrate this, let's examine the planet Neptune. Did you know that Neptune is the planet of mystery, of dreams, of the deep currents that flow beneath our surface identity? Think of Neptune like the ocean's depth. On the surface, everything might seem calm, but underneath there are powerful tides, currents, and hidden reefs. These hidden forces shape the shoreline, even if we never notice them directly. Likewise, Neptune's resonance in our psyche shapes the contours of our reality, through our intuition, our dreams, and the unseen flow of creative vision. In ancient Hermetic texts, Neptune's archetype was associated with hidden water. The Kybalion spoke of the all-being mind, the universe being mental. That hidden water beneath the conscious ego is exactly Neptune's domain. It isn't chaos, it's unconscious intelligence, the reservoir of inspiration and deep knowing that life taps into when the mind is still. Psychologists have captured Neptune's effect in studies of flow states, when creativity unlocks and time distorts. In these moments, we're neither drowning nor just floating. We're riding a current. Our sense of self softens. We merge with purpose. The world becomes a living canvas waiting for our subtle brush. Quantum theory hints at reality responding to observation. Unconscious observation, intention, breathes possibilities into being. That inner field, aligned with Neptune's resonance, calls forth the unseen into form. But here's the key. Neptune isn't an unchained force. Left unchecked, it becomes fog, addiction, and self-deception. Just as water floods a fragile structure, ungrounded Neptunian energy dissolves boundaries and blurs clarity. In ancient mystic practices, like the desert solitaries or the Celtic druids, the invitation was always to trust but anchor. They built silence into architecture, rhythms into ritual, and boundaries into devotion. They knew that to welcome Neptune you must also walk the shore. In the Sufi dance tradition, for instance, the whirling dervish spins until inner thresholds open, spiritual sea doors, but they always step back inwards to a stable axis. Their turning calls forth mystical insight, but their stillness houses it. This is Neptune's dance, intuitive expansion anchored by feet firm on the earth. Today, we can cultivate this resonance with simple practices, deep listening to dream symbols without analysing, allowing still moments of intuition at dawn, creating art even without knowing why. In those acts, Neptune's current becomes a creative partner. Your thoughts, layered by purpose and filtered through clarity, become carriers of unseen harmony. And here's why this matters in your quest for reality mastery. Neptune is the subtle composer of inner alignment. When your surface mind matches the resonance of that hidden depth, reality itself begins to adjust its textures. Ideas flow more freely, synchronicities arise, intuition sharpens, and insight blooms. You're no longer pushing against matter, you're invited by destinal currents. But awareness is the door. If you're lost in Neptune's realm, you drift. If you fight it, you fracture. The mastery emerges in communion. You attend Neptune's resonance and then let your grounded clarity translate it into real-world intention. You may not be rewiring stars or launching pyramids, but your inner field becomes an instrument. You become a living tuning fork, vibrating in time with deeper currents, and your life becomes a living composition. This is Neptune's gift, to show you that reality isn't just solid, it's a sea of resonant possibility. Part 4. The Post-Rewiring. After mastering this, you'll then arrive at a silent moment after you begin to rewire your perception of reality. A strange stillness where the world hasn't changed yet, but your relationship to it has. This is not fantasy. It is the slow rising of a deeper awareness, a recognition that all things external are shadows cast by something internal, that what we see out there was once believed in here. And this belief, this ancient hidden law, was not only known, but practiced by those who shaped the course of history. This part of the knowledge is what many seekers miss, because it is not loud. It doesn't shout like desire or scream like fear. It is the whisper behind every choice. Who are you becoming with this thought? The 33rd degree understanding teaches that reality responds to identity, not to want, not even to belief alone, but to the core frequency of who you are. It's a difficult truth, but those who grasp it gain a quiet, almost unsettling level of power. The Stoics understood this. Epictetus, a slave who became one of the most respected philosophers of Rome, said, "Circumstances don't make the man, they only reveal him to himself." That sentence could have easily come from the mouth of a modern-day mystic, or someone in possession of 33rd degree knowledge. He meant that your external world is nothing more than a mirror for the state of your internal being. If chaos rises in your life, look inward. If peace surrounds you, look inward again. You will find the answer not in the wind, but in the stillness behind your eyes. But this power, this ability to mold reality with consciousness, was never just a philosophical game, it was survival. The ancient Egyptians taught that the heart, weighed against the feather of truth, Ma'at, had to be light in order to pass through into the next life. What made the heart heavy? Attachment, ego, lies, anything that distorts the inner truth. And what makes reality heavy in your current life? The same things. The 33rd degree teaching is simple but radical. Align your inner self with the frequency of truth, and outer reality must obey. There is no other way. You don't have to become a monk or a magician to practice this. You need only begin noticing what thoughts you carry like precious stones, and which ones you hold like chains. Because every thought has a vibration. and repeated vibrations form a field, one that begins to shape your relationships, your health, your career, and even the way strangers treat you. People can feel whether you've met yourself deeply or not, and the universe responds accordingly. One ancient philosopher who knew this well was Pythagoras, not just a mathematician, but a mystic who believed numbers carried vibrational truths. He taught that certain numerical frequencies could influence the soul. To Pythagoras, the number 3 represented harmony, the triangle of body, mind, and spirit. To reach the 33rd, an amplification of that sacred 3, was to embody the master principle of alignment in every layer of being. That's why many ancient schools reserved the highest teachings for those who had mastered silence and internal congruence. It wasn't about secrecy, it was about spiritual safety. Power without inner harmony destroys. Power with inner harmony liberates. History gives us more than symbols, it gives us living proof. Leonardo da Vinci was not only a genius of invention, but a deep student of harmony and inner resonance. He once said, "Learn how to see. Realize that everything connects to everything else." He meant more than biology or art. He meant that if your thoughts, words, and actions contradict each other, the reality around you will mirror that incoherence. But when they align, the world bends, and things begin to happen that others call luck or fate. But you'll know it wasn't random at all. So what happens when you become deliberate with what you are? When you no longer entertain weak thoughts or speak from brokenness? When you treat every inner reaction as sacred ground, worth examining before you project it onto the world? You begin to feel the edges of your reality soften. People begin treating you differently. The right conversations appear. The doors that felt sealed start creaking open. You walk into a room and it bends around your energy, because now you are a source, not a seeker. To walk with this understanding is to live as a sculptor of experience. Your words are the chisel, your emotions the hammer, your vision the design, and your faith the steady hand that keeps shaping even when the stone resists. But here's the deeper truth. This power is not meant to make you superior. It is meant to make you responsible. Once you realize you're shaping reality, you no longer have the luxury of blaming others. You no longer get to say, "They made me feel this way," because now you know you allowed it. And that awareness, though humbling, is what sets you free. This is why the true 33rd degree isn't something granted in a ceremony. It's revealed in how you live, in how you hold your silence, in how you use your words, in how you choose your thoughts when no one's watching, and most importantly, in how you respond when your old world begins to fall apart. Because here's the secret few talk about. When you start living from this level of consciousness, your old life will resist. The people who knew your weaker self may not understand your shift. The world you built from fear may crumble to make space for the one built from truth, and that process, though painful, is sacred. You're not here to survive inside an inherited system. You're here to create a new one with your own frequency. The masters knew this. The mystics lived it. And now it's your turn. Let this truth settle. Reality is not fixed. It is flexible. It is shaped, moment by moment, by the consciousness that meets it. And the consciousness is you. You're not alone. In the stillness of your heart, you may begin to sense that you're not alone in the awareness you're awakening to now. This understanding isn't a modern fad or a fleeting spiritual breeze. It is ancient, and civilizations long gone practiced it with reverence and discipline. Long before laboratories and electric lights, the ancient Egyptians mastered conscious alignment through their spiritual architecture. The Great Pyramid at Giza was not just a tomb, it was a calibrated resonator. Priests understood that the geometry, the stone, and the orientation relative to stars and solstices all created a living field, a place where consciousness could interface with cosmic energy. When the pharaoh entered this field, he wasn't merely a ruler, he became a reflection of a higher cosmic order. The pyramid acted as a sculptor of both form and thought. When aligned with integrity, when the inner frequency matched the temple's harmony, the outer world shifted to meet it. Crossing the Tigris and Euphrates, we enter Sumerian land around 3000 BCE, where another civilization held sacred the relationship between spoken word and manifested action. Their earliest known writings are incantations, formulas carved into clay, uttered by priests to influence harvests, storms, and fates of nations. These were not primitive spells, they were early forms of what we might now call intention programming. Fast forward to the classical Greeks, where philosophy and mystery schools began to examine the nature of perception and reality on a more cognitive level. Plato in the Timaeus described the world as a living being, zoion, an intelligent, holistic organism animated by the world soul. To attune your soul to that vibration was to participate in the becoming of reality itself. Pythagoras, as we mentioned before, elevated certain number patterns to divine attributes. His followers claimed that chanting certain numerical sequences, walking labyrinths, and aligning houses with specific proportions could harmonize a person's soul rhythm with the cosmos. They said there were resonant keys, vibrational codes, that unlock alignment. In these ancient cases, knowledge was never passive. It required initiation. It required purity of intention. It required the cultivation of silence, stillness, and the integrity to hold truth under pressure. They taught that power only becomes mastery when anchored in the vessel of character. You might ask, if this was done thousands of years ago, how does it matter now? The answer lies in an old Mayan belief. Time is not linear, it is ceremonial. They said that every reenactment of ritual realigns us with cycles still alive, cosmic laws that never paused, never ended. When we remember to calibrate our inner frequency with the eternal vibration, we recommence the ancient dance. That dance moved Caesar to cross the Rubicon. It moved Hypatia to teach astutely under Roman rule. It moved Hildegard of Bingen to sing chants said to heal entire valleys. George Washington carried mat-like presence into war. Each became a vector for reality to change, because they aligned their inner state with timeless universal design. This is not legend, this is living proof. Likewise, indigenous wisdom across the world spoke of great and small cycles. In ancient Australia, the dreaming doctrine describes ancestral energy activated by ritual songlines, enabling transformation of land and human consciousness together. The land remembered, humans remembered, reality shifted, the land and the soul became one. Is that not the original meaning of 33rd degree knowledge? That intent, when clear, reshapes both inside and out. These civilizations hold keys for you today. You must look beyond books and ideas, into the practice of aligning your inner frequency. When your thoughts, feelings, words, and actions form a constellation of integrity, they become a temple. That temple resonates with cosmic law, and creation begins to help you. So how do you know you're stepping into the master's lineage, rather than playing church? The difference reveals itself in stillness. When you quiet your heart and sense the subtle hum beneath daily noise, that is resonance. The vibration beneath your skin responds to truth. And when that resonance is sustained through mundane moments, when you do the laundry or drive the car and still hold inner harmony, you are not practicing power. You are becoming it. This is what ancient temples, pyramids, chants, and mystery schools taught. That mastery is not in the spectacular gestures. It is in the quiet alignment sustained at scale. And when your life becomes that temple, your reality obeys. So as we walk forward, take this ancient companionship with you. Feel the lineage of those who came before, who treated geometry, words, and presence as living instruments of creation. You're not an isolated traveller. You're an echo, a flowering, a continuation of a secret lineage that has shaped civilizations. The question is, will you allow it to shape yours next? You are reality. By this point of the journey, you no longer chase power. You become it. But this kind of power isn't loud. It doesn't control others. It doesn't demand or dominate. It is silent, anchored, and whole. It's the quiet certainty of someone who has faced themselves completely and come out the other side clear. That's what mastery means. Not that you manipulate the world, but that you are no longer manipulated by it. Reality, in the end, bends not to ego, but to alignment. Once you understand how thoughts shape form, how emotion fuels vibration, and how attention collapses probability into structure, then you realize the ultimate question is not, can you shape the world, but should you? Not from fear, not from hunger, but from clarity. And clarity can only come once you master yourself. This is what the initiates of the ancient world knew, the 33rd degree, the level symbolically linked to completion and resurrection. is not about rising above others. It's about rising above your old self. It's about turning the gaze inward until the unconscious becomes conscious, and the parts of you once ruled by shadow are brought into light. Once that happens, the world outside begins to move in harmony with the world within. But the gate to this level isn't technique, it's transformation. You may learn how to focus your mind. You may learn how to use breath, intention, vibration. You may understand the laws of manifestation, resonance, frequency. But none of it will truly work, not in a way that lasts, unless you are willing to meet yourself honestly. If your heart still burns with resentment, or your thoughts run wild, with fear, or your actions are rooted in need, then your power will fracture before it fully forms. It will mimic control, but fall short of transformation. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Nietzsche said, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded," and Jesus said, "The kingdom of God is within you." They were all pointing to the same truth. Once you master yourself, reality begins to move as your servant, not your master. That's the paradox. Everyone wants to skip the inner work and go straight to the outer results. They want manifestation without meditation, power without humility, creation without alignment. But the universe doesn't respond to surface wishes, it responds to being. And who you are deep down is what life meets with precision. Change the energy within, and the outer world rearranges. Stay the same, and no vision board can help you. To master this power, then, is to become completely honest with yourself. Where are you still reactive? Where are you still needing the world to prove your worth? Where are you giving your energy to patterns that don't serve your becoming? Mastery begins the moment you stop blaming and start observing. The moment you stop trying to control the storm and instead become the calm center. In Hermetic philosophy, this is the essence of the principle of correspondence. As above, so below. As within, so without. The true master does not fight the wind. They adjust the sails. They do not try to bend the world through force. They bend themselves into alignment, and the world bends naturally around them. Think of the ancient sages. Lao Tzu wandered in silence through mountains, writing of water that flows where it is welcome, and wears down stone not by force but by patience. Pythagoras taught that harmony and proportion exist both in music and in the soul, and that the outer universe responds to inner tuning. Yeshua, Buddha, even later mystics like Rumi, all carried a similar thread. Transform yourself, and everything else follows. When you reach this stage of the journey, you no longer need to be seen as powerful. You no longer need to make things happen. You become a space where things happen naturally. You walk into rooms and shift energy simply by being. You speak less, but your words ripple deeper. You act simply, but your actions are charged with presence. And this is where reality begins to respond in a way that seems magical, but is only the result of deep spiritual maturity. So the final step is not to command the universe, it's to become one with it. When you are no longer in resistance, when your ego is softened into service, when your thoughts, emotions, and body align with truth, then you will move through life like the wind, light, powerful, and free. And when you get there, when you feel life move to meet you, not because you forced it, but because you became it, you'll understand the 33rd degree wasn't a destination. It was you, all along, whole, present, ready. That's when you'll no longer chase control, because you'll realize you are reality, becoming itself.